so forgive me for what I do. I was in high school once though, so I get it. So again, I'm Andy Rieger. I was proud Lancer back in 2006. Do they still stay on the announcements? It's a great day to be a Lancer.
Yay!
They still do? That was something that my principal when I was there started, so it's a pretty fun thing to see that still going. But so anyway, I started J. Rieger & Co. back in 2014. The whole history of my story was I actually went to SMU down in Dallas after I graduated from East. I was a double major in math and finance. Started working for a private equity group in Dallas, and then switched over to investment banking. And it was while I was at the investment bank that I came back to Kansas City and saw a restaurant in the old Rieger Hotel started up, and started talking to the people doing it, and that sparked the ideas. So the history of the Rieger brand goes back to 1887 in Kansas City, where my triple great grandfather started a distillery in the West Bottoms. And then in 1915, about 30 years later, they opened a hotel to coincide with the opening of Union Station right in the Crossroads area. And that hotel still stands at the corner of 20th and Main Street. And there's a restaurant called the Rieger on the main floor, and the basement is a bar called Manifesto. From that, it was our opening weekend in 2010 in late December. And actually, my father had just passed away of cancer. And so it was a pretty emotional time for me. And I went in more or less as a request from him before he passed away, and met the guys. And he asked me that if he wasn't around to get to go, to make sure I help them and give them whatever they need to make their restaurant feel as authentic as possible. So I went in 2 nights in a row, and on that second night, I took an entire manila envelope full of old Rieger family pictures that they could hang on their wall that they were trying to build out to give it a much more family feel. And at that night, that was when the guy who ran their cocktail program walked up to me and said, "You know all about the history of the old distillery. We should partner up someday and restart that." And like I said, it was an emotional time for me, but went back to Dallas, thought about it a lot, and wanted to see him do it, but wanted to have any interest in it, didn't want to be a part of it. I felt it was very emotional. So basically helped him build out his business plan so that he could go raise money. And as I started helping him, I started doing more and more of it. And I was looking at it with this emotional perspective because I didn't think I was going to have any involvement, and was able to get in touch with and sign on board the gentleman that ran Maker's Mark for 14 years, and then signed on board the guy that ran Tanqueray for 20 years, and signed on board a guy that ran the largest liquor conglomerate in the world sales team to become a partner. And so sort of doing those things, it's my now wife, then girlfriend, who looked at me in 2013 and said, "I think this is what you're supposed to move back to Kansas City to go do." So we wanted it to be something that was manufacturing, brand-based. We didn't want it to be a restaurant or a bar. So when we started up, we found some space in the original settlement area of Kansas City, actually. It's known as the East Bottoms District. And within that, we're within the little Electric Park District down here. And that's east of the River Market. And this is where the Belgian fur traders actually settled in Kansas City to do all their trading with the Native Americans. This area that we're in was made really famous back in the pre-Prohibition years, actually, by a brewery called the Heim Brewery, which started in East St. Louis and then relocated to Kansas City. And when they were in Kansas City during the pre-Prohibition years, they were the largest brewery to the west of the Mississippi. So we found this old brick building that was 48,000 square feet. We found this warehouse that was connected to it that was 15,000 square feet. We started out by just leasing the warehouse in 2014, and then 2 years later, because we had no retail, all we did was distribution and manufacturing and brand building. We were in about 15 states across the country, and it led us to understand that we had to really expand, buy the buildings that we were in, buy some land around the buildings if we were going to do a large-scale expansion and really kick it up a notch. So over the next 3 years, ending in July of 2019, just last year, we worked on a mass-scale development and historical rehabilitation project where not only did we more or less do a mass development of 60,000 square feet, but we were really setting ourselves up to build our very first welcome center, to have more or less this real estate development mindset, and do things that would bring people to a district of Kansas City that they otherwise don't come to. And it takes a lot of effort to do that when you're trying to get the mass public to go to places that they're not comfortable or they don't know much about. but it was more or less our goal. And so we had to focus on everything from general carrots that we got people interested in, wanting to learn more, wanting to potentially come down, getting that first impression down, wherever that first impression exists of when you see our building or walk up to our building or walk into our building. We had to make it so that the experience was top notch. It's truly for all ages. So we see parents that bring their kids down all the time and they have brunch. We have a 40-foot slide inside. And so we really tried to do a lot of different things in addition to having multiple bar restaurant concepts within, so that it's its own district more or less. So that was our core business. That is our core business. So we are pretty much divided into two now in normal times, where we have this manufacturing and distribution, which is about 35,000 square feet. And then we have the on-site retail business, which occupies about 25,000 square feet. So two entirely different groups of people operating under one roof. And ultimately what this did was that it set us up to where within our first 6 months, we had about 85,000 people that came to a district that banks in Kansas City thought no one would ever come to. So it was really good to see the general support that we got from the community during that time. And that really led us into our ability with the expansion to be able to take on a big reason why we're here right now. And so when COVID-19 really started, the first rumblings going through the business community were starting in February. In America, people didn't actually start talking about it as if it could be something potentially, small percentage chance, whatnot, until I would say mid to late February. And then by the first week of March, that was when people really started to scratch their head. And then the second week of March is when it hit everyone like a freight train. And when it came around, we were actually putting some of our overproof gin in spray bottles and using it as disinfectant around the distillery. And as we were doing that, my wife, who's our brand director, she actually took a picture of me doing it on our slide and put it on social media. And a bunch of people were just asking the question, can I buy that? And we just thought it was silly and not something we were interested in. So then we had someone else reach out to us a few days later that ran a nursing home here and said, hey, there's some distilleries that are making hand sanitizer on the West Coast. Could you guys do that for us? We're completely out. And what they were all doing on the West Coast, and what most are doing still today, is they're making really small bottles of it, and not enough to make it of any scale, not enough to really keep people employed, but more or less just PR opportunities. And I didn't want to make this into a PR event for us. I didn't want to publicize it that we were making a couple hundred 2-ounce bottles of hand sanitizer and donating them or whatnot. And so I wasn't really interested. And then that woman from the nursing home came back the next day and said, please, could you do this just for us? And we all talked about it. And I said, if we're going to do this, then we're not going to do this and half-ass it. We're going to do this in a way that actually makes this our business line and allows us to keep our entire staff employed while actually providing enough product so that our community and cities all around the Midwest are able to actually have enough to be able to supply themselves. And so where this opportunity really existed was, what we've found is hand sanitizer has been made overseas. And it just doesn't, you don't understand these things until times come like this. And so a reason why hand sanitizer became so rare in America is because our trading with China was completely shut down. And all the hand sanitizer factories, and the reason why hand sanitizer has been so cheap is because it's mass produced overseas. And what everyone is realizing is that hand sanitizer made in America is a lot more expensive. And then when you start layering in other elements like not bottling machines and production machinery, but instead doing it a very labor intensive way, you're kind of taking a step backwards from what you're taught in school about efficiencies and running businesses. And so as we started this, we had a lot of people calling us talking about bottling machines, labeling machines, things along those lines, but not knowing what the future looks like for more or less this was responsible. And what I mean by that is we don't need short-term equipment, but also we have 65 full-time people and families that count on us. Having that many people that are, can you hear me? Am I still good? Having that many people on our staff, you have a responsibility in itself to take care of all of them. And one of the things that Jennifer said at the beginning was family. And running a small business that has that many people doesn't necessarily feel like a family. But when we started out, just until early 2019, before we started hiring with the new development, we only had about 10 people. And so we really were a true family. But being a small business, you can really judge yourselves and decide how you want to be based upon what you want your employees to feel when they come to work or when they don't come to work. And in my prior life, I worked for the private equity firm and investment bank, and you were treated like a number. You were treated like a dog. They overworked you. They didn't care about you. And there were a lot of things that I was treated as, or other employees were treated as, that when I started this company, if you even read my LinkedIn page, I don't think I've changed it unless our PR company has changed it because they were offended. But my LinkedIn page pretty much says everything as to how we started this business is based upon the failures of others and how to avoid those common pitfalls of what employees view their employers as. And so for us, everyone that comes to work every day, no one feels like they're actually going to work. No one feels like they're doing something that they don't want to get out of bed for. Everyone's coming to a place that they really say, I can't believe that this is what I get to do in life. And that's a really important thing, an important characteristic to try to keep in mind whenever each of you are searching for jobs, or if some of you become fortunate enough to be hiring people, is what do you want people to think of you as when they leave every single day? Do you want them to look at you and have your back no matter what? Or are you trying to make a little bit of extra money and ruining people's lives or treating them very poorly in that process? So when I talk about family, that's a big thing for us. And so being that we have 65 people, taking care of them is just as important in my eyes as taking care of our community and the need that we had in our community. So pretty much in 36 hours from the minute that when we said, hey, let's do this in a real manner at a large scale, to when we got the first bottles out, was truly 36 hours. When you think about a company at that size that is completely changing what they do and retooling everything to try to make changes, and keeping in mind we're 4 weeks later and we're still making improvements on a daily basis. But right now, we just shipped out today, about 4,000 liters to Trader Joe's. And Trader Joe's needs 4,000 liters twice a week going forward. And so that's just because so many of these necessary businesses that are out there, they're requiring the most basic of things that our country doesn't have to offer, and being able to set yourself up and take on a challenge. Whereas most people in our situation just said, we'll wait for the storm to pass. And for us, we could have easily done that, furloughed every single person in our company. But seeing how close our family was and how much everyone truly appreciated each other and respected each other, and being able to potentially do something that keeps them together is very, very important. And one of the most impactful things that someone said to me early on in this process was this another business owner in Kansas City who's much older than I am. They said that the most important thing to think about and understand during tough times when the future is uncertain is that the best thing you can do for your employees is to guarantee them a place that they get to work when everything is all said and done. And what that ultimately translates to is that during tough times, it's absolutely expected that staffing cuts are going to be necessary and absolutely needed in order to preserve the company to be able to come out on the other side and have those jobs made available for everyone else. I sort of understood that, and once it sank in over 2 days, I kind of just took the FU mentality to that, and I just said, that's not us though. We can't do that. I got to figure out ways to get creative so that these people not only get to be here when this is all said and done, but let's do something that keeps everyone together during this so that we're all in this together. Everyone knows where they get to be at the end of this, and everyone is even more like a family. So for us, retooling our entire operation, we're still making whiskey every single day. Our head of production is making gin today as well. But the biggest thing for us is we're a hand sanitizer company right now, as terrible as it sounds and as terrible as it seems. But it's something that the community needs, the community wants. And for us, the community also is incredibly receptive to how we want to take care of our employees during this time. And that's a very big component for us as well. And so a lot of people are supporting our hand sanitizer, even though it's not the cheapest on the market, because they know that we are keeping 65 people employed, because they know that their purchase of hand sanitizer ensures that that money stays in Kansas City, goes to Kansas City families who are buying more Kansas City goods and things that really matter and make a difference in the long scheme of things versus saving a couple dollars on a bottle. So with that, that's pretty much the summary of how we got to where we are. Things are a little crazy. Working as many hours as we are, trying to survive is not as fun as it would potentially sound, but we're all pretty young at this company, and challenges are meant to either be accepted or declined, and how you step up and accept them is a way that really defines you going forward into the future.
I blown away with that information. I was taking pages and pages of notes. First things come to mind, that do you think that that was a generational like entrepreneur? You're a young entrepreneur. That was an easier pivot to make to go against traditional models. And then have you gotten any sleep? Like that's a really big responsibility to carry.
So yeah, I would relate the ability and willingness to pivot similar to starting a company. And all of you that are in high school right now, one thing you have to understand is you have something that you won't have forever, and that's youth. And what I mean by that isn't drop out of high school and go start a company, but I think that the path that I went on, where I spent 5 years in the working world, learned, saw how the world operated, saw how corporate life was, saw how the financial community operated and whatnot, it allowed me to understand things so that when the opportunity presented itself, even though I was in a really good position and I was doing everything I went to school for and the money I was making was fantastic, it just felt like that if I was ever going to take a chance in life, that I was at the age in my mid-20s, that was the time to do it. And you don't get that opportunity to say that, but I convinced myself by saying that if this fails, and what I'm talking about is starting the company from the beginning, if this actually fails, I have a better story to tell than everybody else. And that is going to lead me into my next job or next interview, whatever that may be. Fortunately, it worked out, and that didn't end up happening. But for the actual pivoting, I would say that, yeah, youth is a big part of it, but also just your willingness to do something that's a little bit different and take that risk. And, even if you're doing things that are on the edge or in the gray areas, but you know that it's right. I mean, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Most likely, none of us will ever have to experience anything like this ever again. And so you have to sometimes make choices even above what general intuition tells you to do the right thing, that at the end of the day, if you do the right thing, it's going to benefit you in the long term. And we're already seeing the fruits of that labor, where people are saying, I'll never drink anything else in my entire life because of what you guys did for the city during this time period. And that's really impactful to hear, and it's a really good indicator of a moral compass that what we did was absolutely the right thing, whether it was meant to be that way or it just happened to be that way. But pivoting your entire business, I would say that a lot of it truly came from not only youth, but truthfully desperation to just keep everything the way it was. Everyone loved what we had going on, both the public and our entire staff. And having a global pandemic that we had no responsibility for, I'll never forget the amount of tears that I had over the first 10 days. It was something that the crying of not just me, but everyone on our team, this company meant so much to everyone, and we just wanted it to survive. And it was such a weight on all of our shoulders, and everyone was just looking at me, what are we supposed to do? And it was so much mental bandwidth that it took up, that the hours per day, I mean, we were at the distillery, my wife's 7 months pregnant, 6 months pregnant, 6 months pregnant, and with our second kid, and she and I are working 16-hour days. And it's just absolutely crazy to think about. But essentially, we're trying to do as much as we possibly can right now, because the future is so uncertain that you kind of have to take chances in order to hope that what you're taking the chance on and what you are improving your overall company and bottom line to be, that you're going to be able to continue to pay people, even if, for example, our hand sanitizer business goes away. And that's obviously the scariest thing for us, is what happens if our main revenue stream now goes away? What are we supposed to do with our family of 65? And so we're fortunate that some government programs came out and were able to help us along the way. But our biggest hope is that some of these antibody tests come back and you're able to figure out there is immunity to it, and it's a lot easier than a true vaccine, or vaccines are able to hurry up or whatnot. But the future is very, very uncertain. And so it's all about grabbing as much as you possibly can right now to support your staff and your team and keeping yourself as safe as possible during these times.
Well, Andy,
sleep is not abundant though.
Oh, I want to respect your time. You left off with the perfect thought. We have Dr. Leonard is on here, our assistant principal, and she runs the Lancer Instagram. Would you mind giving a little shout out, like saying it's great to be a Lancer, and just that important to take care of yourselves and each other? And I brought my little, I got.
Oh, look at you.
You guys, yeah. So here's the label as far as design students. I love that it's still on brand. And so I'm digital design students. We're going to do a whole nother kind of spin-off of Andy's information about what it means to be on brand and the label maker and manufacturing that he talked about. Lancers, our time is, he only has about a minute. If you want to chat, send all your questions. Andy, would it be okay if I sent some follow-up questions?
You guys have questions right now, it's totally fine. I blocked off an hour for you.
Oh, okay, great. Well, the Lancers only have about 6 more minutes. We promised them 30 minutes.
What's anyone have to do today?
Come on.
I beg, like, I want them to talk to me. I'm always like, last weekend, I'm like, hey guys, let's get on a Zoom. So Lancers, if you guys have any questions, you can go down to the chat function and throw them in there. I also think it's just fascinating, the area and the bigger picture, which is what I love, the concept of the bigger picture, that it wasn't just a PR stint. Like, your historical area is, bringing back 85,000 people to a place that no one thought that they would, visit in Kansas City. And so here's a question. Do you have any volunteer opportunities right now? Do you see those chats, Andy? I think you do.
Yeah, I can see
Okay, great. So I'll just let you answer what you'd like.
So we'll just start at the top. Do you have any volunteer opportunities right now? No, we don't. And, a big thing on that is also a little bit of that principal element. And what I mean by that is ensuring that we can get people paid. And so, we've actually hired people since this all has started. And so we're really trying to do our part to keep the economy moving. And it's no different than, for example, the people that say, first off, super generous question, but we get people that tell us, why are you charging for this hand sanitizer when people need it? And you just scratch your head at those people and you say, it costs money and I have employees and we're trying to keep the economy moving. And so that's a big element of that as well, is we don't want to take anything when we can afford to pay for it right now. And so I really, really appreciate that. And we're actually just trying to keep as many people employed and earning a good wage. We're actually paying all of our hourly staff $20 an hour right now. So we're really trying to do our part in making sure that everyone is taken care of as well as possible. And we're doing a lot of financial advice for everyone. We're doing 3 meals a day for everyone, so they don't even have to buy groceries. So we're really trying to line everyone that is working for us' pocket, because again, the future is very uncertain, and we're just trying to ensure everyone has as much as possible. Next one is, will you keep your hand sanitizer business after this all dies down? So we right now have a variance from the FDA to make hand sanitizer based on our current licenses. And so as long as there is a need and that FDA variance applies to distilled spirit plants, then we will continue to make hand sanitizer. But we're gonna, there's a really cool company in Kansas City called Dimensional Innovations, which would be a really fun one for you guys to study in your branding. They did our entire historical exhibit. They are already talking to us about doing a really cool historical exhibit for us in our space on the hand sanitizer pivot. So this is something that'll define our business for a long time. Our creative director has been taking a ton of photography, and we'll be doing, books and write-ups and all of that when this is all said and done. But we're trying to make sure that we just stick to making the hand sanitizer right now as long as it's needed. And then once it's time to memorialize this era, we'll go ahead and do that. Did your company have to ship any new supplies? Yeah, so we've had a ton of new supplies that we've had to ship in. This was something that when you're starting an entirely new product line, more or less, you're having to try to figure it out on the fly. And supplies were very, very tight when this all began, and shipping lanes were very jammed. And once we got into a groove and we figured out our final packaging, et cetera, we've gotten into a much more clean perspective of a traditional supplier vendor relationship. So being able to have those types of suppliers that we know are supplying us, they know what we're doing. That means that we've been prioritized on their list. But there's been a ton of new supplies that's had to come in. And to date, I think we've bought about, in a month, about $250,000 of hand sanitizer only type supplies to be able to pump out. Where did the slide idea come from? So this is a blend. This is a fun question. 2-part question. One part was I wanted to do a couple things down here in this development that were very different. And by different, I mean things that people will talk about and they've never really seen before. Because when you're doing something in an area that people ultimately are questioning, should I go down there or should I not go down there? You need as many of those carrots that make people potentially interested in checking it out. So one is actually, if you look at our website, we have it on there on our private event rooms. We built an entire dining room inside of our barrel warehouse, and it's surrounded by whiskey barrels. And so it's a climate controlled room that seats 16. And it's unlike anything we'd ever seen before. And it was kind of a late night drawing of an idea that we gave to the architects, and they really grabbed a hold of it. And the second one was one that came from our head of production, and he goes, we should put a slide in the distillery. And we all kind of laughed at him, but we all realized the type of impact that it could actually have on social media, people getting to, people of age, getting to have a couple drinks and then going down the slide. But what we'll also see is parents bring their kids down all the time, and the parents will have brunch and let the kids just go up and down the slide all day long, or up the stairs, down the slide. So it's something that's really fun, but it also has a little bit of meaning to us because when I said we're in the Electric Park District, the very first electric powered amusement park in Kansas City was right next to where we're located right now. And Electric Park was something that was owned by the Heim Brewery. And down here, they actually had several thousands of light bulbs. They had a couple rides. They had a water fountain, bandstand, theater, a huge beer garden, and everyone dressed to the nines when they came to this park. And it was a social atmosphere more than anything else. That park, they also shot off fireworks every single night to signal the park's closing. They ended up relocating that park to 46th and Paseo and built the second iteration of Electric Park and opened it in 1907, and it burned down in 1925. But that was the park that a little boy named Walt Disney grew up going to. And all of his inspiration for Disneyland came from that second iteration of Electric Park. And so the idea of water fountains and fireworks at an amusement park came from and originated right here down in the Electric Park District of Kansas City. So the slide had a connotation of Electric Park, but it also had a really fun connotation as well. How do you apply social distancing while making, we'll just say hand sanitizer? It's something that's very difficult, but we have protective equipment that everybody wears. And so, everyone is about 5 feet apart from each other, but you have to get close to people to grab things and make handoffs, etc. So it's all about PPE. But one of the things that we also don't allow is we don't really allow outsiders to come into the facility. And so we've kind of gotten into this mentality of, as hilarious as it sounds, our germs. And we're kind of all deciding who's our family and who's not right now. And so even we have medical pickups that people that work for medical companies and necessary businesses, when they come and place their orders and pick up from us, we actually force them to stay in their car and call a phone number, and we bring the order out and put it in the back of their cars. So we try to minimize contact with the outside as much as possible. But other than this moment right now, everyone is wearing a mask at every single minute that they're in this entire building. 2 questions. What are you doing to maintain? That one we just said. What has your experience been with the government small business loan? Yeah, so the government loan, we're very organized from a financial perspective, and I've been talking to our bank ever since the idea that this might be something real. So when we submitted, everything was about as easy as it possibly gets. So everything was very smooth sailing for us. We had all the documentation. My VP of Finance pulled together what I knew I needed, and I worked directly with the bank in putting the application together. So the government programs were really good. There was a lot of early on exercising where U.S. Senator Roy Blunt, who's ours in Missouri, I was working a lot with his team because unfortunately no one's ever dealt with a situation like this before. And being able to understand how to react and the type of programming to be able to utilize is very difficult. And so there were several ideas that made it through that I'm sure other small businesses were communicating to their senators as well, but some things from the very beginning that I was communicating would work. And one of them was a program similar to what the Payment Protection Program became. So it's really cool to be able to see that the programs that the small business community felt would actually work and make a difference made it through and became something real. What was the moment like that you had that made you decide to take the risk of becoming an entrepreneur? The entrepreneur question. So that one ultimately was founded from, and I'll go back to seeing my dad pass away from cancer. It wasn't that, because I even told you that I didn't decide to even do this until over 3 years after he passed away. But one of the biggest things there was it just changes your perspective in life. And I always have been telling people that everyone is going to have that life-changing moment that you just don't understand what that life-changing moment is until it actually happens to you. And some people it'll be COVID, and other people it can be death. Who knows what your life-changing moment is going to be in life. But for mine, I didn't really realize it then, but what I understood when my father died was how precious life really is. And if there's an opportunity to be had, what are you going to do someday when you are on your deathbed and you say to yourself, I'm really happy with all the decisions that I made in life? Or are you going to look at yourself and say, man, I wish that I had done a few things different? And my dad, when he was on his deathbed, even said that one of his biggest regrets was he moved back to Kansas City to help his mother, who actually passed away of cancer. And he always regretted that decision versus just coming home and being with her and then going right back to where he was living at that time. So I would say that becoming an entrepreneur is really about your risk tolerance in life and understanding that if you can fall and get back up, it makes becoming an entrepreneur a hell of a lot easier. Are you able to market to those who may not know exactly what you guys are doing? So our brand has always been, we've been a brand focused company, not a sales focused company. And that's been our number one goal, because we're trying to be around for decades and decades. And our goal is to make people come to us on their own terms. There's two ways of marketing. There's forced marketing, and then there's natural marketing. And on social media, for example, we don't use hashtags. We don't follow people. The whole identity and idea of that is every single person that follows us followed us organically. They found us, they wanted to find us, and they are now interested in our messaging. And same thing with emails. We do not add people to our email database. People sign up on their own. So if you send us emails, you don't automatically go on a database. If you order something online, you don't go on an email database. You have to sign yourself up. And we've got about 8,000 emails that people that have just signed up naturally. Social media, we've got a ton of followers. I think we've got about 17, 18,000 or 20,000 on Instagram. And none of that is because of hashtags, because at the end of the day, if someone is looking at your profile because you hashtag whiskey, but they live in Poland, they're not a customer. It does you absolutely no good. And so we just want to make sure that we always have the right people being with us. And the idea of you coming to us as someone that wants to follow our brand and wants to like our brand, that's a decision you're making on your own terms. There isn't a billboard that's telling you that. There's not someone that's forcing you to come into that boat. And typically with human psychology, those are the things that you carry on for life, the things that you decide yourself you like and you want to support. It's a lot slower growth path, but it's a lot more difficult for that path to actually fall off a cliff, because everyone that you have is there for a reason, not because of the billboard that they saw, and then that billboard becomes something else next month and they jump ship and go to that. Cool.
Thank you so much. I have someone who wants to say hi in our house real quick. Do you mind? We're popping on a guest.
What's up, brother?
Who is the best freshman basketball coach you've ever had under your staff? Who is the best freshman basketball coach you've ever had?
He can't hear you. Sorry, hold on. He said, who's the best freshman coach you've ever had on your staff?
Hands down, best freshman coach, Andy Rieger. No questions asked. No questions asked.
Only team we lost to was an A team.
I know. You were the best. Unbelievable. You're the man.
Good seeing you.
Hey, it's so great to see you, man. So proud of you. Great to be a Lancer, brother. See ya.
Sorry, I totally forgot he couldn't hear me. So you're basically saying all of this is due to your training as a Lancer, right?
Exactly, 100%.
Exactly. So this is so awesome. Well, thank you so much. We do want to leave it with, we are so proud of you. We have sent this out to parents, and if it's okay, can we share your recording with PTSA?
Absolutely.
And Harbinger wants to be involved because, and I know the raffles, do you employ 2 of 3 raffles?
We do.
Okay, yeah. So I just
we have a total of 6, including myself, Lancers at J. Rieger & Co.
Oh, that's so awesome. So this is the most attentive I've had these students. So I gift that to you and your passion and your service to Kansas City and to your family. Congratulations on baby number 2. Good luck with the rest of that. And Lancers, anything else? Can you guys say thanks real quick in the chat? Leave a little positive message. That would be awesome. It's good to see your faces.
Just remember, it's always great to be a Lancer.
Good. And Dr. Leonard, can you film, or how would you like to do that? Do you want to unmute yourself?
I might send you an email, Andy, just asking for a little favor, but just wanted to say thank you as well. Just awesome story, from taking risks to remembering it's important to take care of each other and taking time when I know it's got to be busy. So really interesting to hear your story, and definitely you're making East look really good. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks again. And we're proud of you, Lancers. We're proud of you. Hopefully Charlie Hustle's coming on in 2 weeks. So
If you need help there, you let me know.
Oh, awesome. Well, you just made my day. Good to see you. Congratulations.
Good to see all these students' faces. Thank you, Mrs. Hare, for inviting me. I love seeing you guys. I miss you so much.
Yeah, miss you. Thanks again, Andy. Good luck. Good luck.
All right. Thanks,
All
guys.
right, take care.
Be good.